Where are you from, Willard? How far are you from the river?
They told me that you had gone totally insane.
What did you expect? Are you an assassin?
I'm a soldier.
You're neither. You're an errand boy, sent by grocery clerks to collect a bill.
So this isn't just some hippie sort of bullshit nonsense video. Most of it actually stems from an anger. I, for about 3 or 4 days now, have felt totally insane.
I'm sick of it, and I'm calling you out, scum!
You have to remember, the term conspiracy, and to call something a conspiracy theory is a thing that's bullshit. A conspiracy is when people conspire together to do something. And I know for a fact that there is a conspiracy to essentially keep allowing the pollution of our waterways and to keep killing salmon and trout. And there is also a conspiracy to continue the sale of Ireland's nature. And when I say nature, I don't mean it just in an ecological sense, but I also mean it at a fundamental level. That Ireland isn't just some kind of fucking open plot, fucking anarchy server on a Minecraft flat world. You can't just come to Ireland, spawn 1 million slimes and then just generate sticky pistons. This country actually fucking means something.
We know we're under attack! We know it! We're breaking the conditioning!
This video is a product of a fishing trip I took 2 weeks ago. I took this fishing trip to way down from one of Ireland's greatest trout and salmon rivers, and I monitored its starting position from its very source and wanted to make a YouTube challenge to essentially make a 10+ kilometer trek down the river with full kit, set up camp somewhere on an adjacent bank, eat, hopefully catch a fish. What I saw really horrified me. And it is this horror that drove my first investigation in attempting to disprove that this is actually as big as it is. I saw floating shit, almost a sea full of it, indications of nutrient saturation, agricultural leaks, plastic strewn through the sides of the riverbanks and barricades built across the river. All of Ireland's waterways have been polluted ever since I have started fishing. A year ago, when I used to fish in the southeast, it was a regular occurrence that raw sewage would create films of bacteria on the water's surface. In the Grand Canal in Dublin city centre, it was a semi-regular occurrence to see refugees openly defecating into the canal, throwing their tents and plastic in there too. Eventually though, I got used to them, so I just started casting topwater frogs around them, and I ended up landing some nice pike from time to time. And that's what I mean. I was getting used to it. Just like all of us. We're used to the pollution in this country. We're used to the state that it's allowed to get to. We're used to the degradation, and the point of my research was essentially to find a reason. In lakes I'd fished in Cavan, there were films of foam and saturation, and I've seen dead fish on riverbanks. Even in West Cork, Kerry, Clare, there is no end to the seeming persistent pollution. I decided to get used to it, just like probably you have. Last year, when I was fishing on the southeast coast, many times I had to cut out of the video because I was embarrassed that this is what my country looked like. Embarrassed that I had to pretend that it wasn't raw sewage washing up. But now, being to the source of this great salmon and trout river, I'm beyond angry. Because despite the remoteness of where I was, not 15 kilometers could pass from this source, that the rot had already spread to this river. I tried to rationalize it, tried to relax, tried to keep fishing, but it wasn't any use. I thought maybe the government doesn't know. I was wrong. Not only do they know, they encourage it. They sell, donate, give away everything that this country naturally has in exchange to inflate a bullshit number so they can delude themselves that they have done some good. The snake has many heads, and in this video, without being Icarus, I will try to fly with the sun at my back and also sever as many of them as possible. But make no delusions, it is no single sector that is completely destroying our waterways. It is our government and administrative officials who can never be fired, who have never been held responsible, who can go home and privatize themselves from all of this. Because we paid them enough money that they can build a nice big gate and build themselves an ark and float above all of this, while the rest of us have to wallow in the shit that they fill our rivers with, the shit that they fill our sea with. So spare me the sentimentalities of that they're just doing their job and trying to just live a better life. Or even when I talk about the migrants throwing shit and plastic into the canal trying to live a better life. Because that is the most base form of any life form on this planet, is to live a better life. The bacteria that the government allow to spread, pollute, kill and choke our wildlife is just trying to live a better life. The Sitka spruce that they plant, which kills off all of our native flora, wants to live a better life. The shareholders, international financiers and CEOs of all these global companies that come here and exploit your infrastructure just want to live a better life. That is literally the starting point of anything. Bacteria we haven't even discovered on Mars wants to live a better fucking life. But our nature and country deserve a better life. The tens of thousands of suffering native life forms deserve a better life. This country was founded on the principle of a rule that we deserve a better life, free from the chains of international empires that leech our resources, reduce the value of our people, and export the natural resources of this land at the cost of them. And so thus, throughout this video, I'll show you the merchants and money changers who sell your land before your newborn children can stand on it. The same ones who give themselves glowing reviews and take credit for all the country's hard work, while sitting at the top, leeching, so we can hopefully, with the triumph of a will, cut loose these miraculous statesmen, so they can be opened up to the world, and go perform their economic miracles. So when you see pollution at this level and at this scale, please don't avert your eyes, as it may weaken your hand. May it strengthen your resolve and understand the whole reason you're paying your taxes, when you're going to work, buying something, or even during sitting down watching this video, is for the state to upkeep the infrastructure that it's required, an aspect of which is not letting our rivers turn into the Ganges, and to overload the country to a level where it can no longer support itself and has to pump raw sewage into the sea. In many ways, looking at this country from the outside in, it can seem like a paradise. Going per dollar at the highest it's ever been. Massive growth and investment, but at the level of nature, we are acting like a third world micronation, polluting our rivers and seas. The government is killing off and polluting its native species, with 90% of our wild habitats in poor condition. So to start, I'll begin with an unlikely source, one that is killing off a lot of our flora, is being planted for profit to replace our natural habitats, and is quite literally changing the landscape of this country. It's even the reason why we have so many fires that we have to continuously fight, which the companies that plant never have to pay into. And that example is, of course, the forestry sector and their massive and grotesque invasions and plantations of the artificially invasive and destructive Sitka spruce, and how it's killing the trout and salmon in this country. It is empirically correct to say that the Irish government has in the past, and still wants to replace our indigenous species. Only 2% of our country still has native broadleaf trees. The other 9% of our entire country's landmass is non-native. Over 2/3 of this is Sitka. Why does this matter to us though? A tree is a tree, right dude? And what does this have to do with fish? Well, other than the fact that this has been an engineered replacement of our native trees by our government, in tandem with private loggers, it is also an engineered extinction that takes the homes away from our native flora and fauna. Nature is complicated, unlike what these idiots think. A tree is not just a tree. It is not a 1 or a 0 that you can swap for a line of code, or a GPU to swap about on the universal motherboard. This is what I would think if I was an idiot as well. Sitka spruce plantations are totally alien and create environments that are destructive here in this country by the importing of their culture. The canopy that they create in their mass plantations blocks sunlight from our plants and animals that should have it, killing them. That same canopy also traps airborne pollutants, sulfurs and salts in their needles, making them more acidic. When it rains, this acid hits the soil and absorbs heavy metals like aluminium. This washes into our waterways and acidifies the water and deposits that metal as well. Trout and salmon are both part of the salmonid family, and as all anglers should know, they are very, very sensitive. The metal that enters the water solidifies in their gills and chokes them slowly. If that doesn't happen, the acidity in the water just kills their eggs. But it's not just them, it's the curlew, the hen harrier, their freshwater pearl mussel, and countless more are under threat, not to mention the species we have already lost. Our government essentially sold their existence to profit, replaced their homes with something more profitable, and are currently creating a cobblestone farm out of their bones. The term used for this ethnic replacement is biodiversity loss, as to frame it that we need more diversity and this is why this happened, as if diversity could bring back our native species that they apparently want to help. These droids think that a tree is a stick of RAM you can plug in anywhere and they'll just do a heckin' nature. This is why 90% of our natural habitats are in poor conditions. These people are fat and retarded. What has really happened is a replacement and a plantation in the historical Irish sense of the term. The installations of monoliths that suck the lifeblood of our country out of us and take the food from the mouths of native flora and fauna. I spoke to a Quilcher representative about this for over an hour. They told me that they were doing their best to take care of our environment, and they even gave me a pencil. I really cherished that pencil. It was my favorite. I was 12 years old at the time. Quilcher went on their kiddies campaign to convince my generation that they are the good guys while killing off our native species. So what, you might say? They managed to fool a 12-year-old. A 12-year-old can be outsmarted by a pair of shoes, but never, ever, ever underestimate a pair of shoes, as a pile of them can justify a terrorist state in the Middle East. To cut down these trees, they use the clear fell cycle, which is where they come in and chop massive swaths of the forest down at once, tearing up the soil and destroying the landscape, killing whatever could have been living there. They just continue right-clicking after this and plant more. They want to replace our red squirrels with grey squirrels that carry squirrel pox. I'm not joking about that at all, because to them it's all the same from their view in their vast pleasure domes in the Dublin Mountains. Their fat, gelatinous, stinking mass injects their neoliberal greenwashing ideology into everything. Even when they replace our species, it's talked about like the civil rights movement. And it is in that spirit I propose for these administrators of gay nature a separate water fountain that spews acidic, metal-laden water into their chambers and offices. Replace their cars with large yellow buses that they have to sit at the back of, and each time they get off at their stop, I will bolster the economy by having reactivated the workforce of the old Charlemont flats to chase them on the streets with socio-economically deprived pit bulls. A dog is just a dog after all, so it should make no difference if it was a chihuahua. I have a dream where lily-handed parasitic officials can hold hands with the consequences they have created. As a genius once said,
To my fellow finger sniffers, consequences have actions, pimp.
I hate their cheese-headed replacement of our nature, so I now openly declare my crusade against this native replacement. I, like the pine marten, will dedicate myself to this holy responsibility at this golden moment, so I may in time, at the altar of our extinct native genus, lay a wreath inscribed with the words, "And yet, you were victorious." Now let's discuss farming.
Some sort of trap.
This will not make you comfortable, and this will not need to be exaggerated, as the necrotic and cancerous pollution that farmers cause is the single largest cause of death and annihilation of our native species. 48%, near half of our water surfaces in our country, are unhealthy, and it keeps declining. 44% of our rivers are polluted with nitrogen as a result of intensive dairy farming. A third of all lakes have too much phosphorus, which is essentially shit. 70%, so over 2/3 of our estuaries, are, quote, unsatisfactory as a result of farm pollution as well. So they are playing a game of Death Stranding, delivering poo to the sea. A reminder that if you let your dog shit in Dublin city centre, they aren't going to take the money out of your dole, they will fine you, and you can even go to court. Meanwhile, farmers have 6 million cattle who are shitting openly enough to make India blush, and, for punishment, they get a reduction in the free money that they receive. Meanwhile, our government is currently wrangling 5.3 million goyim to pay for them to continue doing this. This is totally government-backed and funded through subsidies that you pay for. This part I'm sure you know already. Virtually all farms in the country receive subsidies, which come from you, and you on average subsidise their income to the tune of 70% per farm in the country. In some cases, 158% of farm income is subsidies. Cheers, mate. The vast majority of the food they create doesn't even reach you, as 90% of what farms in Ireland produce is exported, and apart from the regular taxes a business pays, they are just like absolutely everybody else. Except, of course, that they are given carte blanche to blast our waterways with shit. 3% of all farms are inspected a year by EPA. Near half of them break the pollution rules. Near half of those caught who are breaking the rules don't fix it before the next follow-up. The main reasons for failure are negligent saltwater management, disruptive discharges from farmyards, and mismanagement of farmyard manure. The punishment is the taking away of free money that you give them anyway, which they never had to pay back in the first place. Unlike a lot of things given out by our government, it is essentially no strings attached. They can even receive the subsidy and not reach any sort of yield that year at all. They could just get the money, buy the shed, tractor, or slurry storage facilities, and continue the Shoah in Ireland's waterways as if nothing ever happened. This is on land that the vast majority of farmers own, which just increases their property value. Property their children don't pay inheritance tax on, unlike you. And you pay a third. If you think that's a load of shit, maybe, they have multi-million euro lobbies that jockey the drones in charge of our country to bend to their whim. I have it under good authority that they all have a farming lobby, Hindu, illiterate parasite in their heads, and it makes them worship cow dung. Because our government diverted money from the Infrastructure, Climate and Nature Fund that is supposed to be funding environmental projects to farmers. You now pay a 70% of the cost of a massive container of cow shit for them to be more green and clean. But if you had a tangerine submarine, you couldn't use it because that same shit is ending up in our waterways. Of course, no one here has a tangerine submarine. I totally made that up. Onto something their lobby made up, in a gold-plated boardroom, is the infinite amount of time they are allowed to blast our nature without ending up in a courtroom. Lag time is the time to last that it takes for positive environmental actions to show up in nature, either slow or fast, and Their forecast, as far as I can see, is 4 to 20 years to pump shit into our sea. Now, I am no scientist, and I can't peek behind red tape, but 4 to 20 years of leaky poo sounds like a serious case of arse rape. 4 to 20 years! That's how much of dibs they want to essentially fuck you in the ass. This is because they blame the pollution in our waterways that they cause on you.
We're gonna feed on your ass! Then the cops just drink fluoride water off.
They allow the shifting of responsibility of the cleanup on your tax money. They blame civil infrastructure, water treatment projects that you have to pay for with taxes as the largest reason our waterways are polluted with a thick film of scum. The thick film of scum that run our country tend to listen to them, so they keep wanting to bring water charges back, something that no Irish man or woman should ever have to pay for. Understand, when farm lobbies shift the blame like this, they de facto make the argument to pencil-pushing mongoloids to charge you €1 or €2 for going to the loo to poo. And to be honest, I'm a pretty self-confident guy, but after 4 to 20 years of getting fucked in the ass, I'd probably be doing a lot of pooing myself. So, maybe they have a point. The farming lobby, Irish Farmers Association, Dairy Industry Ireland, and also Ireland's largest business lobby, IBEC, when combined, create a super PAC for polluting our waters. The IFA has managed to have farms treated under government policy and law as having vital, strategic and national importance. Unlike, of course, everyone else's job, house or livelihood, which can be replaced tomorrow by STD-ridden grey squirrels, Sitka spruce plantations, or any new kind of import, which is cheaper, easier and more profitable to manage. Remember, this is only because they make money. It's got nothing to do with their inherent value or nature, because our government don't believe in that, because they are relied on to self-report all pollution. 2 or 3% even get inspected by our authorities, and half are incorrectly reporting. If we extrapolate this report, which is the best source we can get, we can roughly assume that 66,000 farms in the country are underreporting their actual pollution, the sort of pollution that can lead to a lake that was the source of 40% of Northern Ireland's drinking water at the time, filling with cyanobacteria that they would prefer you would call an algae bloom, the same way your parents would tell you your dog went to Spain on holidays when it got run over. The sort of pollution that regularly sludges its way down into Loch Mask, Loch Corrib, the Shannon River Basin, Ladies Island Lake, where 10 out of the 11 feeder streams were filled with fucking nitrogen. This caused the entire lake to turn fucking green, man. Green! And no one has been punished for this. 11 out of 12 feeder streams that flow into this river are filled with nitrogen from farm runoff, and not one farmer has been punished. This is like when a normal Irish person stabs someone and says, "Oh, sorry, I didn't see that," and the motive is still unknown. Meanwhile, the government think it was Professor Plum in the drawing room with a candlestick. I think their farms in Wexford, on which is the average price of just the soil is €1.6 to €2.1 million, should be compulsory purchased and detonated to form a crater for an inland shark and barracuda fishery that is free for all Irish people. €2.1 million, by the way, that's excluding the discounts you as a taxpayer give them. So, they can inherit this 2.1 without paying tax, discount to tractors, sheds, storage facilities, cheaper fuel, free planning permission on their land, take out mortgages against this land. Oh, and also they can turn your entire lake fucking green if they want, and you can't do anything about it. 20,000 fish dead in the River Clyde, 40,000 dead in the Munster Blackwater, 5,000 in the Barnagrow Lake, and countless more that haven't been reported. Farms are constantly being caught with pipes and hoses that lead into streams kilometers away from their farm so they can continue pumping shit and deflect away from themselves. So fish kills can just happen, and they intentionally make it difficult for themselves to be caught. But who is identifying these fish kills? You are. The agencies themselves require anglers like me or you to call it in. So unless someone calls up the line to specifically tell the IFI that a fish kill has happened, it won't be known about. I personally myself know about fish kills that I never rang up about in the past, and I don't see them reported when I check the results. I simply didn't know that I had to report it. I was thinking to myself, probably like most other people, there are multiple different government agencies that deal with stuff like this. And many of the executives of these agencies sit around pointing fingers at each other at who is to blame. Meanwhile, the field workers who are actually, like all the anglers and swimmers in this country, walking around knee-deep in shit, the fat and gay executives of these organizations sit around in the Dáil and the Oireachtas pointing fingers at each other at who is actually to blame. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being gay. And these people are all very proudly gay. But I just read that on some little column from years ago, so probably not true. So just big misinformation thing there. But I'm sure if they were all rampant homosexuals, that would be completely fine, and actually, that would be super. That would be fine. But listen, just to hit you with a little bit of a curveball, don't take this from me. Take this from professional multilinguist and asylum advocate Roderick O'Gorman, when he said,
"There's a question of responsibility for water quality. It's all over the place. You have the EPA, you have inland fisheries, you have the Department of Agriculture, you have the Department of Housing, you have all the local authorities. And when everyone's responsible, ultimately no one's responsible."
So when everyone is responsible, no one is responsible. But of course, you are the one that will pay for this cleanup. You will pay for every single complicated measure to stop and clean up the pollution. You will pay for the farmers to continue to doing this too. You pay 75% of their wages. You pay handsomely for all of these administrators, executive and politicians to keep doing this as well, the ones that allow farmers to continue doing this. You will be paying for the vital and necessary Twix and Kit Kat chocolates to be there at the meetings where they listen to multi-million euro lobbies, the same lobbies that represent farmers. Farmers that are almost government employees that can route a pipe and pump poop into your home and can still get a Freddo for 15 cents. The same lobbies that cook our government and allow farmers to pollute our waters despite it costing us fees from the EU. The same lobbies that push the idea into the public conscience that the average farmer is poor because of low farm income. While there is merit that some farms have low income, and in general farm income isn't that high, you have to remember that 60% of farms in the country don't just do farm jobs. Remember also that income is not wealth, so it has nothing to do with what they own. They can own more and more from getting subsidies to build infrastructure on their land, and that doesn't count as income either. Also, rather than selling their assets, over a quarter of Ireland's economically small farm operators plan to lease away their land in the coming years. A quarter of them will just be landlords of fields. This is essentially when the farmer can lease land totally tax-free, up to €40,000 tax-free. So, near the median wage of the average Irish worker, tax-free. And all the profit that's on top of that is taxed just like you are just when you're going to work. This income isn't counted as farm income either. So hence we see the super low number and feel pity that they are slaving away. Remember, the majority also work a job outside the farm, which also isn't counted as this farm income number. Depending on the type of farming, it can even be done on weekends or within time off from work. But even with no work at all, they can collect subsidies and tick boxes to not break pollution rules that half that are inspected do anyway. Time for some more perspective. The average Irish household wealth is roughly €250,000, while the national average farm size of 35 to 45 hectares, with just the mud and soil, the average farm in Ireland is going for €500,000 on good quality land. This excludes bogs and hills, that kind of deal. The Gaish's National Farm Survey places this at a higher level, with just the soil going for €621,540. That's with no farmhouse, no subsidised tractors, Hellcat SRTs, concrete sheds, gold chains, hose, or watermelons and Kool-Aid. Just the soil. They can sell this land they didn't pay tax to inherit through farming structural relief rules to minimise or eliminate capital gains tax you would normally have to pay. Assuming no one wants to buy or lease their land from them, as in other farmers, solar farms or wind farms often look for 25 to 40-year deals that allow them to install their energy production sites on their land for ballpark $2,200 to $3,500 per hectare annually. This also isn't farm income, by the way. Lastly, if no one at all is interested in buying it, when it comes to something that all of the rest of us would consider our biggest challenge, they can easily get equity loans against the value of their land to fund alternative businesses or rental properties. This also isn't farm income, by the way. So don't let the lobbies and their dastardly scheming work fool you. They are delighted that most people don't know that farmers are the main cause of water pollution in this country. They are happy you think farmers are struggling constantly, when in general, they have more rights than any other person in this country. Not for being a different race or separate class, but apparently just because of their job. But please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not angry that families are inheriting their place of birth, or that their communities are not subject to the radical changes that are happening everywhere else in this country, or even that they are doing well for themselves. In fact, I wish more Irish people could live in this way. But the truth is we, normal people, don't have a multimillionaire lobby that will stand up for us in the same sense. I don't deny farming is hard work. I don't deny that a lot of people would find it incredibly difficult or would be physically unable because they are fat or lazy. I do not deny these things. But need I remind you that the average Irish person is also working themselves to the bone. They are clocking in and clocking out, just trying to get a home for themselves, or even planning permission, which farmers can get for free. Farmers and their children have such different rights that they practically live on a different planet. This is the way Irish people should be treated, and not this de facto separate class, which is apparently just a job. And it is this de facto protected class of people and their multi-millionaire lobbies that are by far the greatest polluters of Irish rivers and seas. And it's the multi-million euro lobbies that essentially want to push the pollution that they create down to you, the normal person, who is already struggling with the current cost of living, and then would have to pay for expensive, complicated efforts to separate the nitrogen, shit, runoff, and stench of multi-millionaire lobbying from all of our rivers and waterways. I will give the farm lobbies some credit. They haven't pulled this red herring out of nowhere. 200 water bodies in our country are affected by drainage, channelization and wastewater. It's just the fact that 5 times that amount is affected by farming, which affects 1,000 of them. This is a map of Ireland and what it's currently doing. Sorry there. This is Ireland. Both countries are doing the same thing. Both countries are putting raw sewage into the sea. But the GDP of Ireland is one of the highest in the world, no? Isn't this supposed to be, technically a mega, super mega first world country? High goyim per dollar means that you don't pump sewage into the sea, right? Our wastewater infrastructure can quite literally not support the amount of people that are here, so we're pumping raw sewage into the sea. If I read that and the title wasn't Ireland, it was India, I go, of course. Of course. But the thing is like, we're here. We're not in fucking India. We're not in some third world shithole. We are in apparently one of the most developed countries in the EU, in Europe, in the world.
Done!
Before we dive into this analytically, I want to clear the feces that is blocking your third eye for a second here. Why would the government allow this? If they wanted to change this, they could, and they will gladly take radical and drastic action if they wish. So why are they then allowing this to happen? Look at the effects and who is actually at a plus from this, rather than immediately looking for a why. Don't try to look for the causes first, because this is the game that they want you to play. A game they are very good at playing. The blame game and constantly deflecting around. They blamed you when they wanted to charge you for water. They blamed faceless bankers when they bailed them out in 2008. They blame you for wasting your money on consumer products during the cost of living crisis. They blame the previous government for the situation as it stands. Pencil pushers and administrators always just ask for a little bit more time. It's always temporary, a temporary measure. Just a bit of short-term pain for long-term gain. All while making the most short-term decisions with no regard for your future in any way, shape or form. In that sense, it's when you get a hosepipe ban they tell you to relax and not water your plants. When your sea swimming spot gets shut down, that's just the way it goes. And when your electricity costs secretly rise, that's the cost of living. The cost of living. Living for a cost. The cost is for you and for them and their friends, it's their living. Since 2015 to 2023, you've already secretly paid €715 million. Ireland has the highest electricity cost in Europe. You pay 40% more than anyone else. And this isn't a tax. This is mainly due to data centres, which use nearly a quarter of Ireland's total electricity, 22%, estimated to go up to 30% by 2030. There are 121 data centres here in Ireland, with no signs of stopping or slowing down. They, per capita, put more strain on our infrastructure than Germany, France, England, or anyone else for that matter. 4 to 5 times the amount compared to these countries. Also, thanks to lobbying, we can't know how much these individual data centres are using water and electricity-wise. Water and electricity that you paid for. Because you paid for all the infrastructure to be here. And the government has just simply given it away to them. But don't worry, while you get a hosepipe ban and aren't allowed to water your plants, these data centres will never get a ban on pulling water to cool their plants. Meta's data centre in County Meath used up enough water for 21,000 residents, and that's just one of them. One data centre used up 21,000 residents worth of water. The government knows that you'll shut up and take it, and you'll accept all the hosepipe bans and all the other secret taxes that you're also paying to keep up the water infrastructure, meaning even more of your tax money is just going to support them.
You know what it's like, you sons of bitches? I'm tired of your crap!
And the thing is, you've been paying this secret tax. None of that money has gone to upgrading your infrastructure so you can have a cleaner Ireland. That money essentially just went into the air, went to the supply. Because these data centres don't even have to pay into our infrastructure when they come here. That's all just given away along with everything else. Don't worry though, when you Google this it says they do. Because politicians say that data centres can give back to our grid, but as usual it's only on a technicality. They have to be able to power their plant to 100% capacity, but the trick is there is no mandate for how long. Also, these generators don't have to be producing 100% of their capacity all the time. They're obviously just going to rely on your grid and leach the capacity. But on top of this very generous donation to these multinational companies, the Irish government is currently trying to pass the Private Wires Bill, which is going to allow these data centre companies to essentially create their own power generation. But it's not going to go to you. It's going to be on site to supplement the amount that they get from your grid, basically being able to boost their own power and also leach the same amount of capacity. Of course, this will naturally exempt them from the network fees that you pay to upkeep our infrastructure, the infrastructure that you and the generations before you have paid for, and that is now the village bicycle for data centres or anyone else for that matter. This means you are going to come to the rescue and pay a heavier residual burden for maintaining the public network. The public network that a quarter of which is used by private multinational companies that the government is donating your money to. So thank you very much for your service. So if they turn off their data centers or power it down, they could send a little bit of energy back to the grid, and that's only if they're running their generators. so you can spin up your pot noodle in your microwave. And you are going to continue to pay for it, as your taxes are paying for Airgrid and ESB to spend €19 billion to boost our capacity. Capacity which we normally actually wouldn't use. Capacity and money that can't be found when Ireland pumps sewage into the sea. Can't be found when 18,000 Irish people are homeless. Can't be found when Irish people need it. Because they are giving away with the left hand, and with the right hand they take from you. They give away the infrastructure you, your mother, your brother, father, and generations before you have paid for. And now they are not giving, but taking. Taking more from you so they can be even more generous with your money. Aren't you super? The reframing of this issue is happening right before us. Just like how I described before, farming is described as a, quote, core sector, this man here, appointed fat retard for climate, energy, and the environment, says they are a core part of our country now too. So, data centres are now a core part of Ireland. I propose that we have his ilk distilled into liquid calories and have his fat mouth run these centres, along with all the other politicians who agree with this. They're all paid €120,000 basic salary a year. That's before any expenses. They can easily start footing their bills. Their organs are probably worth half this amount, because they are all caked with visceral fat from Kit Kats consumed in lobbyist meeting rooms. So with this prelude in mind, that we need to not look at immediate blame or what the government say, but look at who benefits from these effects, let's progress forward to wastewater. Just like how there is a technicality that these data centers are going to power themselves, there is also a technicality when it comes to raw sewage in our seas. The way that the government frames this data when it comes to how clean our beaches are doesn't actually take into perspective the amount of times that they are closed. So, when a beach is marked as unclean by our government, if even for multiple days a year, as the frequency that this occurs has doubled or tripled in certain cases, this isn't counted as a dirty beach. Just like how when the farming lobby talk about a 0.002% decrease in the pollution that they make, even the government-funded organizations that are there to take care of the environment will frame things in certain ways where it doesn't look as bad as it is. In my view, even one beach being closed because of raw sewage being pumped into it is bad enough. It is justification for that beach being marked as being dirty, and for that location to be possibly soiled again without your knowledge. When RT did a piece on this, the people who continuously go sea swimming said,
it's disappointing, sometimes you're getting in the water and you're just going, right, hope for the best. So I'm very reluctant to do that.
Totally normal first world stuff, right? These pollution levels are normally found out essentially by random scanning. This isn't a continuously monitored situation. We don't have buoys there that are looking out for raw shit. So when they are found to be polluting, it's closed, and then after a while it's tested again and reopened. When I was living on the southeast coast, this essentially happened all summer. And this was just the norm. Every single day, there was a closure warning, and I could see foam from raw shit pulling in and bringing in bacteria to the shore. I stopped fishing there after a while, like I said at the start, because I realized and I became cognizant that I was pulling my lures through shit, through E. coli. I was handling the effects of what pumping raw sewage into the sea does. And remember, as with everything in this video, every single cent that is wasted or given away is not a cent spent helping us or our nature. But who is responsible for this? Or is it the lack of funding? Or is it the government organizations with administrators that are in charge that can never be fired? Keep in mind, in this section I'll have to glance at certain points and directions, as this topic itself really deserves a video of its own. You might not be surprised to hear that it's actually both. Let me explain. Ireland's economy has massively increased in the last 30 to 40 years. Throughout that increase, and the consequent boom and bust cycle, the average working person has been paying for the mistakes that our administration have allowed to happen. This is because I would argue wastewater and water treatment is one of the greatest silent issues, and it ties directly into house prices, homelessness, and blatant theft. In the boom cycles, our GDP has inflated to degrees never before seen in any economies in the world, even beating China in growth. Imagine that. But people and homes aren't ones and zeros, and neither is concrete and neither are pipes. You cannot inflate our pipes like you inflate our GDP. They are already full of shit. For decades, 34 separate local authorities managed our wastewater before Irish Water. Sorry, I meant Ishka Éireann. The same company just changed its name after trying to charge you for water. Remember that. I'll keep calling them Irish Water for the rest of this video so you can remember this fact, and also to make it easier for non-Irish listeners. 15 towns and villages are still pumping raw shit into the water every single day. No treatment, just straight up poo. This also has a lot to do with the word, that amazing word, mismanagement. The word that means that it was poorly managed, rather than the people in charge of Irish Water are not doing their job. Not to mention they can't be fired. No one has been fired. And they even gave themselves bonuses. And then is it even just lack of funding or throwing money at them? These organizations are made for massive doll merchants in suits that push pencils and play with an abacus on their desk all day. The bill for this is going to be yours to fix. In 2014, Irish Water tried to charge you for water overtly. despite the fact that water is our right, and the water treatment and wastewater management plants didn't just get fucking spawned in by an admin. You paid for them already, and still do. In 2023, Irish Water required over €1 billion just to operate at a base level. That's before any upgrades. This is because of years of underinvestment not only by government, but inability for Irish Water to even complete core objectives. Because you are now paying for their mistakes. None of them have been fired, and think about who benefits from this. You are now paying billions to use super complicated technologies just because the government never did. They prioritize the needs of multinationals over our water quality and the most fundamental element of our nature, our people. The European Court of Justice ruled against Ireland in March of 2019 regarding wastewater failures, and they are going to fine us as a country, though the final penalty has not been fixed or has not been totally finalised. But don't worry, me and you will be paying for it. As we all did in December 2012, when there was a €2.5 million lump sum, plus daily penalties, totaling €3.5 million fined by the EU High Court in relation to septic tanks and their impact on the environment. The Irish Fiscal Advisory Council noted in its 2024 report that Ireland's infrastructure is 25% lower, so 25% worse compared to comparable European countries. This means that we are now at a level of severe deficit, which is at the stage where it is fundamentally restricting the number of new homes that can even be connected to the utility grid. This is even not allowing developers to build new homes. This isn't just a theory, this already happened in Connacht, in County Cork, where a developer was blocked from creating new homes because Irish Water, the people who are paid to keep up the water infrastructure, said they had no plans to upgrade the village wastewater treatment plant, rendering the zoned residential land totally unviable for development. According to Irish Water themselves, there are 324 high-growth areas nationally that are not currently serviced by adequate water infrastructure, and therefore this means that houses cannot be built on them. No one at Irish Water has been fired, and think about who is benefiting from this. But this hasn't occurred randomly. This amount of overloading of our wastewater system is a direct result of a massive amount of net immigration. To give you an example, Ringsend Treatment Plant treats approximately 40 to 43% of all public wastewater in Ireland. That's in totality across the country population-wise. And it is currently in a state of chronic overload. It was designed for 1.64 million PE, which means population equivalent, and it is currently at 2.17 million. This is because of the rapid immigration has outpaced even the most basic infrastructure. This is a direct result of government policy. Not only the immigration, but also the immense work required to fix and maintain that site, the cost of which you, of course, are paying, along with all the excesses. The cost of inaction under investment and time wasting on behalf of Irish Water. The engineers installed marine buoyancy aids and floating pontoons to install subsurface networks into the Ringsend plant. All of this far more expensive than it needs to be because the government administrators have been failing at their core tasks year after year after year. Our government don't actually step in and clear them out! And a matter of fact, they make the situation worse by inviting migrants and refugees to come here en masse, further taxing our system and further destroying our nature. No one has been fired, and think about who benefits from this. Irish Water faced a €31 million penalty for failing their core operational mandate in 2024. They essentially didn't fix leaky taps and leaky pipes. AKA, they didn't do their fucking job. If you didn't do your job and you received a multi-million euro penalty, you would not only be fired, you would be fucking arse-raped. Despite this €31 million penalty at failing at one of the only jobs that they have, the whole point of their department, they still gave €18 million of your tax money in performance bonuses to themselves. 93.7% of the staff of Irish Water were rewarding themselves for their own failure, and they are likely laughing about it haughtily to themselves when they're on holidays. And what's also laughable is the amount of accountability these people have. No one has been fired, and think about who benefits from this. When it comes to even our base infrastructure, Dublin relies heavily on combined sewer systems, which mix raw domestic sewage with rainwater runoff, and they run both of these through the same pipes. As the greater Dublin area has urbanised, vast swaths of natural soil have been replaced by impermeable concrete and tarmac. This leads to rapid spikes in rainwater runoff. So, then what ends up happening is this exceeds the hydraulic limits of the treatment system, and then the network purely just discharges this storm water mixed with raw sewage into Dublin's rivers and coastlines via storm water overflows. This means there is more shit in your sea than ever before, and the amount of precautionary bathing warnings that have been sent out have doubled in 2025. And it'll probably keep doubling or tripling as long as the population equivalent keeps growing at the rate that it's growing, and the wastewater issue is not being dealt with. Meanwhile, the executives of this company, Irish Water, are patting themselves on the back and giving themselves bonuses out of your money to keep this spin going. The government at the same time are importing more immigrants a year than Irish people are born, further exacerbating and causing this overflow, causing your shit to be pumped into the sea. Please understand that no matter how you feel about this is the truth. The following is sourced from the Central Statistics Office and is also mirrored in university papers. Ireland has had some of the most explosive and unprecedented population growth just in the last few years. In just 18 years, our population has exploded 27%. And between just 2014 and 2024, our population surged by 15.4% compared to the EU average of 1.6, 17 times the difference in growth. This is actively destroying our nature, and the reason for it, like everything else I've said in this video, is profit. The scale of this is the largest reason, in my opinion, for this total civic collapse, though I doubt any university professor or anyone with a government job would be bold enough to assume as much, because it is culturally and societally not allowed at the present moment. To give you just a small idea, in 2006, the white Irish identifying population, according to the Central Statistics Office, was 3.64 million people. In 2022, it's 3.89 million, an increase of population of roughly 250,000 Irish people. Even if we account for the differences in the quote, any other white background tab, which could be genetically Irish people to some degree with different mixes, the number is 289,000. Though this is being extremely generous just to demonstrate this point. But if we count white Irish travellers, just to add on to this even more, which have been lumped in with the Roma people, which are neither white nor Irish, we still get a figure that's roughly 200,000. So the Irish, along with the white, including some Roma gypsies just to be charitable, has only grown 425,986 people. So a 10% increase compared to 197.5. So that's the level of native Irish growth, with more than maximum charitability applied, even with the individuals of mixed Irish heritage possibly putting themselves down as other white. According to the Central Statistics Office, between 2006 to 2022, the total population of the country was expanding at an even faster historic rate. The percentage share of the white demographic fell from a highly homogeneous 94.8% down to an 87.4%, a fall of 7.4%, and in April 2025, down to 83.7%, down a further 3.7%, so nearly half of the amount of decline in 3 years compared to 16. So the pace of relative migration compared to Irish births, even with maximum charitability applied, is rapidly increasing. Again, I will reiterate to you that these are simply facts. There is only justifications or ideas of justifications for why this is the case. This is happening. So the total white population grew 10% since 2006 to 2022. But in that same time period, the Asian population has more than doubled, with an increase of 217%. Concurrently as well, the black population has exploded with a 72% increase during that same time frame. In 2022, the Central Statistics Office proudly introduced a brand new dedicated category for Indian, Pakistani and Bangladeshi individuals, as they are the single largest Asian demographic in the country. In even the time from 2016 to 2022, so 6 years, there has been a 17% increase in the amount of Africans in this country. The pace of their growth, even within that shallow time frame of just a few years, is greater than the pace of growth of Irish people in 20 years. But who is benefiting from this, and why is this being allowed to happen? Who benefits from this are the landowners, landlords, corporate developers, and the wealthy, along with the fact that this unnatural and artificial scarcity increases the price of quite literally everything. The cost of housing, the cost of living, healthcare, creates longer wait times in hospitals, and increases the load on our civic and public infrastructure, because they exploit these migrants more than they could ever exploit an Irish person. Research from the Economic and Social Research Institute reveals that migrants and non-Irish nationals accept pay 22 to 40% lower than their Irish counterparts. A comprehensive March 2026 report surveyed over 1,000 work permit holders and found that 71% had experienced workplace exploitation. These workers, many of which come from the third world, are not invited in or allowed in because of charity, but because of profit, to exploit them. This drives up house prices, drives down wages, and again, creates an unnatural and imported strain on our civic infrastructure, further polluting our water, soil, and nature. This is government policy. The root of this dynamic can be traced back to domestic planning and financial management during the austerity years following the financial crash. The HSE implemented strict requirement embargoes to balance the national budget. In 2013, the Department of Health introduced new graduate schemes aimed at keeping costs low, which is where you need to look at migrants for, especially from the third world. The initiative offered newly qualified registered Irish nurses a starting salary of just €22,000, representing a massive 20% cut from the standard 2009 starting wages. Irish people did not accept this, and they couldn't, so they were forced to emigrate to Australia or Canada or anywhere else. Meanwhile, because of these low wages, the HSE actively recruited from countries where they could offer a highly competitive wage relative to the candidates' home economies, particularly in India and the Philippines. It is no contest to say that the standard of education that emerges from Irish colleges and schools is of a higher standard, So if you think of shrinkflation, it is essentially a shrinkflation of healthcare. It is a shrinkflation of life because of profit and because of budget. The most recent demonstration of this trend happened during the HSE recruitment freeze that went from October 23 to July 24. The freeze was instituted entirely as a cost-saving measure to manage financial pressures. However, this granted significant frustration amongst domestic healthcare workers because Irish graduates and domestic workers sitting on approved hiring panels were told that petitions were frozen. The HSE continuously hired for roles via international recruitment pathways, again, intentionally only hiring primarily from developing countries to fill vacancies, while local candidates trained and educated in Irish schools were kept waiting. At the same time, paradoxically, the HSE said that the international recruitment is only ever considered when the domestic market is exhausted, ensuring that patients can continue to receive excellent, uninterrupted care. What this translates to without the verbal bullshit that you've just heard is that Irish people are exhausted. Exhausted of this race to the bottom, exhausted from the international aspirations of our government. The migrants that are allowed here are not invited or allowed to out of charity, but to exploit. Migrants that are here very rarely report this workplace exploitation, according to the MRCI. I saw this firsthand when working in the security industry. I was a bouncer in Dublin city centre and also in Temple Bar. Not only did I see non-EU or third world migrant workers regularly working 50 to 60-hour shifts, I also knew that they were getting paid far less. My boss at the time even told me very explicitly that I would be paid more than them because I'm Irish, but whenever I really asked to get a raise, he explained to me that he could get a jacket filler, which more than likely would be an Indian. This term itself is used within the security industry for when you are essentially plugging a venue with a minimum amount of security so it can operate legally in accordance with restrictions. So I was told essentially that I would get paid more for being Irish, but at the same time when I kicked up a fuss about my own pay, I was told that I could be easily replaced by a third worlder that would accept far less. Within the security industry, this has to do with insurance. My boss, and I, and also my colleagues, for sure had no doubt that there were many people who could better be suited to do these jobs. In many cases, the third worlders, or jacket fillers that I had to work with, were more than useless, and in fact they caused more problems than they solved. Again, this is not a criticism of these people, it's just the fact that these people need a job, and they are willing to accept the very bare minimum of pay and work conditions when an Irish person wouldn't, won't, and shouldn't. Ireland is a proud country that fought for its sovereignty and its right to exist, and it is my claim that this country should not be reduced to a race to the bottom when it comes to its wages, cost of living, or its nature. Through no fault of their own, and out of that sheer desperation, this is in many cases what third world migrants, or developing country migrants, contribute to Ireland. The increase in cost of housing, the increase in crime, the suppression of wages, and the race to the bottom in terms of cost of living and quality of life. And just to put aside the feelings of migrants for a second, it is important to understand that when you import people from the third world or developing countries at this level and scale, profiteering from them massively, paying them 20 to 40% less than their Irish counterparts, you essentially create a self-fulfilling prophecy. The trap is that because they are paid less and will work more, then they are more profitable to hire. They then start replacing Irish workers within many sectors. According to the Central Statistics Office, 61% of total employee growth between 2019 to 2024 was given to non-Irish nationals. This is despite Ireland being the most educated country in the world. They have replaced Irish workers in many sectors, and that isn't because the Irish are lazy or stupid or don't want to work. It is because these people will accept to work for less than an Irish person would or should, as it's better than their home country. This only benefits the wealthy. To safeguard this exploitation, frameworks are slowly implemented through different forms of anti-racism. You cannot say that we should send these people back, as this makes you a card-carrying member of a radical element. To even state these government-backed statistics will make me a pariah in the eyes of many. The word pariah comes from the Tamil root word prayar, which are Indian caste known for playing percussive instruments at gatherings. European travellers synonymize them with people outside of the caste system, out of caste, or outcast. Some of you might have already discounted this video for mentioning this, but this is part of the plan of these wealthy elites, as I have already said and led you to many times. It is important to be able to step out of the limitations that have been placed on me because of my race, because I am white, and because of this framework. You, having watched this video, understood very perfectly gross exploitation of Ireland's nature to every single degree, but now when I portray myself as an Irish person and acknowledge this documented reality, there may be an uneasiness. This immigration is a massive reason for this natural destruction. Your instincts are probably trying to justify it at every single cost. Just how kids are not allowed to say taboo things and stop telling the truth at a certain point, the same is happening to you, when this is clearly and totally unnatural and destructive to our nature. This is without even approaching refugees, who Ireland never had the legal obligation to accept, that regardless of your opinion or justification for them being here, are resource-wise strictly a net negative. This is something that is seldom known about because of the propaganda that our government repeat, with two words, again and again: international obligations. Protocol 21 of the Lisbon Treaty meant that Ireland could bypass the EU Pact on Migration and Asylum. There were never any legal international obligations to accept these refugees. This was a government choice that only benefited the wealthy and cost the public. This locked Ireland into accepting 648 asylum seeker relocations annually, or supply €12.96 million to the central EU pool. But they would far outstrip this minimum, to the benefit of private companies and at the cost of your tax money and public services. Taxes that could clean up our water, taxes that could preserve our nature, or give our homeless people a chance, or even maybe a home. But there is no money in helping Irish people. There is no money in helping Irish nature. But surely this couldn't have solved the homelessness crisis in Ireland. How much money exactly was it? Well, there are 18,000 homeless people in Ireland, out of which the government cannot profit off because they don't get emergency procurements for helping our people. I had to dig through Oireachtas questions and answers to be able to find this, because there is no infographic saying that we have spent €9.57 billion at a point in time when Irish people are literally having to emigrate, like they did during the famine, to the four corners of the world to live a whole brand new life. We are spending the amount of money that could have purchased us 2 US nuclear strategic Ohio-class submarines fully loaded with 48 nuclear-tipped intercontinental ballistic missiles. And we're giving that all away to shady bankers and businessmen. We could even reach our housing targets for 2050 and solve homelessness nearly 3 times over, giving the homeless a holiday home. But we are giving this money to shady businessmen with backers and donors that are legally protected by anonymity, protected by a manufactured crisis that could have been solved by simply saying no. At a time when we are pumping shit into our sea, our rivers and seas are dying, our native species are losing their habitats, flora, fauna, and Homo sapien, because every single aspect of our government over the years has been doing its best to suck the sugar out of the fruits that this country can produce. The fruits they allow to rot because of its neglect, openly saying no to the orchards of the future. The conclusion. The term international obligations is a superb synopsis of what our government has been doing, in the sense that they serve capital and foreign interests, all of which are inherently international, because they think this country is a puddle and that they can step out of it to universality. When I say this, I don't mean just Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael. The entire political class that have been in power have had a single mind in regards to forgetting their real obligations, their national obligations. They have an obligation to Ireland. They have an obligation to her people and nature. They have an obligation to make the best decisions in her interest, which I believe I have demonstrated that they have not done. To be vulnerable and to make you understand, I have great sympathy for those less fortunate, for those in war. I have great sympathy and love for the Ukrainian people that our government take care of. I lost a friend of mine in that war. A friend that gave me these patches. A friend that they had to forensically identify with DNA. He was iron-willed in wanting the best for his father's land, as I am for mine. And I've seen people struggling in this country who just want a chance that they aren't given. Homeless people like Troy, who used to sleep in the cubby next to the AC vent at the back of the Stevens Green shopping centre, who I used to chat with, give cigarettes and food to on the way to work. People who have poured hours and hours into studying for college, only to be forced to emigrate. Young, smart and hard-working professionals my age that have proper jobs and careers, who still will likely not be able to buy a home. I am iron-willed from my father's land here too. I am only half of this soil by my blood, but this blood and soil is my own. I believe with no pause or pleasantries that there should be no handouts given in this country until every single Irish person has been fed and come back 2 or 3 times more, that they are prioritized as well as our nature, and only then can it be possible to help others. Just like how when you're on a plane, you put your own mask on first, not out of selfishness, but so you can fight to help everybody else. To conclude, a very short anecdote. When I was in college, studying history and politics, I had to write an essay. Catalonia wanted to break away from Spain and wanted to have a right to exist. They felt their people were not being put first, and that this was an obstacle. And obstacles do not exist to be surrendered to, but only to be broken. Writing this essay is when I became awake to the reality that none of us have an inherent right to exist. It's always a struggle that the founders of this country endured and died for. The fight that good people of this country are still fighting for. The fight that our people and our nature is our most precious possession in this world, and that for this people, you must fight and struggle and never lose faith, and that he who would live must fight, and he who doesn't wish to fight in this world, where permanent struggle is the law of life, does not have a right to exist. As in everything, including this video, nature is the best instructor. If you want to learn to appreciate it, you can read or download my book for free, no strings attached. If you wish to support my channel, as I don't make any money posting on social media, you can buy my shirts, subscribe on Patreon, or do a one-time donation on Coffee. Thank you for watching, and for now, back to fishing. Goodbye, be good, and God bless.